All right, family, it's your brother Asad, and I am back again with another quick video. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that notifications bell so that you will be notified when we drop new material on this channel. Secondly, in terms of housekeeping, I got to give a special and a significant and a particular and a peculiar shout out to my South African family for all the love you guys have shown this channel, my wife, myself, my children. We greatly appreciate it. Third, in terms of housekeeping, bam, bam, bam. October 11th at 2 o'clock. Bam, bam, bam. October 11th at 2 o'clock. Kyalami Shishinyama. We will have the meetup and we are going to laugh loud, talk loud, eat, drink, and be merry and do something radically simple and revolutionary. Radically simple and revolutionary. Kyalami Shishinyama, October 11th. 2 o'clock. All right, we got the housekeeping out of the way. So today we have a special guest on the show, right? Y'all know I always tell y'all that Louisiana and New Orleans are two separate things. This person from New Orleans, not Louisiana. You did. So I'm gonna allow her to introduce herself, and we're gonna have a conversation about her experiences here in Johannesburg. Doc?
Thank you for that warm welcome. Hello, family. Bam, bam, bam. I'm Dr. Shepard from Xavier University, and I am so happy to be here with you, Doc. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Now tell the people you are a professor of African American
And diaspora studies. Yes, sir.
and diaspora studies, African American and diaspora studies. Tell us a little bit about that, because I'm in the diaspora space myself.
Okay, so at our department, first of all, we're a new department. We've been around for about 3-ish years. And we are centered on the African American experience, but then also how it is that we navigate throughout the diaspora. And I really love that name as opposed to being in just the African American Studies department. It means that we want to build global relationships, which is something that we've been doing with the University of Wits.
Right, right. Okay. So with the African American history and diaspora, did I get that right? I just messed it up.
African American and diaspora studies.
And diaspora program, you guys first visited South Africa last year, right?
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
was that your first time on the continent?
Yes, it was my first time on the continent. And it was amazing. As a matter of fact, for the whole group, it was our first time in Africa. So, yes.
Okay. Now, you and I have known each other probably about 20 years or more, right? Yep,
Yes.
because we started doing poetry together in like uh
It had to be
well,
2006.
yeah,
So
2006 or something like that.
we're coming up on our
Yeah,
20th anniversary.
that's right. And in that community, it was always very Afrocentric, Black centric. We talked about Black stuff, we talked about Africa, we talked about our ancestors, and we come from an environment that is, where Africa is alive and well in our traditions, in our funeral traditions, in our food, in our second line traditions, all of that. So having come from that experience, both from the poetry and just being from New Orleans in general, and then being someone who is studying the African diaspora and African American history, how did it feel to step foot on the continent? Right? That's the question.
Okay, so first of all, um, I had the experience of like I recorded my feet as it walked onto African soil, so like in my mind, like that was a big thing. And it's about also like fulfilling the fact that my parents didn't get a chance to go. Their parents didn't get a chance. Their parents didn't get a chance to go, right? All the generations that I say I've been in New Orleans, all of those people had not gone back to Africa. So for me, it's like an intergenerational thing as well as being able to fulfill the longing aspect that we get through our culture. Like there are so many African traditions that we have in New Orleans, apart from the rest of the United States, that it feels like everything is already similar. But even still, that does not compare to actually being in the space, actually seeing what Black sovereignty looks like, to be inside of a majority black space where they dictate the terms of the country, I still think that that's different, right? And it helps to continue to stimulate my black imagination around pan-africanism and these concepts that were just concepts at first, but now I get a chance to really think about, well, how would that work? What would it be like to set up a business in South Africa? What would it be like to be able to send goods back and forth, so I feel like it helped to be able to put more of like what's tangible and practical in something that was just ideas at first.
Mm, mm. I want you to expand on that a little bit, in particular the Pan-African side of it, because you know there has been an attack recently on Pan-Africanism. Someone even declared it dead, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of people don't realize that the idea of Pan-Africanism does not come from the continent. It actually comes from African Americans. We originated the idea. The Edward Blydens and the even Du Bois and Garvey and all of these people formulated this Pan-African ideology. And again, recently people are trying to say that is dead, and I see it, in my opinion, as being more alive than ever. Um, Go ahead, go ahead.
Because we're going to need relationships with each other moving forward. Everything around us is telling us that there's a surge in white supremacy. So, of course, there are going to be people who say Pan Africanism is dead because right now they're brainwashing everyone into whiteness. So, it's
Mm,
going to take intentional ways of working together. Also, Pan Africanism has always been a threat to people. There have been intentional, I don't know if it was you or something that I was reading at one point that talked about so many decades ago, they were on the floor of Congress talking about the fact that they needed to keep Africans and African Americans separate.
mm,
Okay. Why? Because if we come together, there's too much collective power.
mm,
You and I have talked before about the fact that African Americans can leverage their dollar, leverage the resources and privilege that they have in order to be able to help and assist Africans in what it is that they're trying to already do, and that
mm.
there's so much collective power that we can have just working together. And I think that you're in contact with people who are actualizing that, and some businesses where people are actually doing it. So like that's what we need. If we have the if anyone sees the value in us, it should be us. And it
Right.
should stimulate us to work with each other, because what the rest of the world is telling you right now is we do not want to work with you. We do not want
Mm,
to work with you. And as a matter of fact, we don't think it's valuable to work with you. So they're
right.
taking away affirmative action. They're taking away anything that has to do with equality. I don't know, how close you are in it, but I don't know this woman's name. It's like Representative Amy something or another. She just called um Representative oh, my kid just came in and threw off my train of thought. Jasmine Crockett. She called
Crockett.
her a black B word, a ghetto black B word, something like a day or two ago. Okay, so this
Lord.
means on all levels, they're showing you the racism and they're trying to push you out of official positions.
Mm,
They've been floating around the statistic that about 300,000 Black women have lost their jobs since the Trump
mm,
administration came into
yeah,
office. And
yeah.
so, what they're telling you is you're about to have to get it on your own, and we don't
Mm,
want to do anything to support you. So that
mm,
means that we're going to have to do things to support each other. It only
yeah,
makes sense. If we're all demonized and vilified, then what we should do is come together and create this very rich exchange between us in so many
right.
ways, right? Not just money.
And meanwhile, we got like West Africa, Niger and Burkina Faso and these different nations really expressing their autonomy in ways that are disruptive to the world order. Right now, France is in turmoil because of these West African nations expressing their autonomy. But when we talk about this Pan Africanism, we'll get to South Africa and your experience. But when we talk about this Pan African and our connection to the continent. You hear people in these different groups like the FBA and the ADOS, and they say, well, white people don't say that they're European, or white people don't say this, that. So it was very interesting. I was watching the Charlie Kirk funeral service, memorial
Why'd you
service.
do it to yourself?
And well, you know Dr. Clark. You know Dr. Clark, right? From
Mhm.
Dillard, Dr. Clark. He said during the Cold War, the experts on the United States were not the United States. It was the Russians, and the
Mhm.
experts on the Russians were not the Russians. It was the United States, because you got to study your opponent. So Stephen Miller, Trump's boy, got up
Yeah.
there and he started his speech by saying, "We are the descendants of the people of Greek who created Greek civilization, and we are the people who created Western civilization," and immediately connecting whiteness in the United States with European history, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. That's what the United States, ideologically, constitutionally, is an extension of Western Europe,
Yeah, it's
right?
a satellite city.
We happen to be the slaves in this scenario. But
Literally
they
building it. Go on.
right. We built the civilization, right? But
Literally building it. Yes. Uh-huh.
built with our hands.
Right.
So, but he is connecting himself, right, to Europe, to Western Europe and European civilization. They are under no illusion of who they are, right? And they can do it. They can look at their last names. Last name is, Milanowski. They know that they Polish or something, or whatever that name comes from. You see, you see what I'm saying?
Shots all over this thing. Okay, yes.
But you see what I'm saying? Like, they know that they know who they are because they still carry their names. We're the
Mhm.
ones walking around with King. That was my name, my birth name, or Johnson or Williams, and confused about who we are, and then looking at African people and saying, who look like your cousins, who look like your brother and your sister, and then having the audacity, not even the audacity, just having the pure ignorance, right? To say, and I say ignorance very, very purposely, because the root word of ignorance is to ignore, to literally ignore the fact that these are your kith and kin, and say, we are not them, right? And so we have so much of that noise going on within the Black community, right? It's not everybody, but the noise is loud enough that we have to at some point pay attention to it. And to your point, we are under serious attack in the United States, right? We no longer can depend on the federal government. Dr. King and the civil rights movement were petitioning to the federal government because the states, Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana, those were the enemies. Now, Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama, and DC are all working together. We need to be unifying with our brothers and sisters on the continent and in the Caribbean and around the world in order to do something better and greater for ourselves. And eventually, we need to see, you will see it, if this is my prediction, you will see such a significant number of Black Americans deciding enough is enough, it's time to go. But go ahead.
I was going to say for sure. I'm hearing people talk about that right now. I'm in
Mm,
conversations with people right now who are
mm,
thinking about how they can leave the United States. So, I mean, I just think it's inevitable, and that's the reason why we need more Pan-Africanism, more cooperation. I mean, that's the reason why, Ghana was trying to call people to come back at a certain point, even ahead of this. And just to say a little bit more, I mean, even Canada was talking about giving people political asylum because of what's going on inside the United States right now. So everyone else internationally knows that there is a dire problem and people are going to need to leave. But also, I want to say sometimes you'll wind up with people who are working in silos because they haven't been internationally. They haven't traveled outside of the United States. I'm not saying that that's the same for all foundational Black American arguments, but a lot of the times, some of those people have not come back to Africa. So just shows that there needs to be more contact and more understanding that happens between the two groups. And that's not me saying that certain that being a foundational Black American doesn't have its own special identity, because that is still a special identity. Just like Jamaicans still want you to know that they're Jamaican. Okay. So there's that special identity. But at the same point in time, it shouldn't stop us from being able to collaborate and work together, you know.
Absolutely. Kenyans know that they Kenyans. South Africans know that they South Africans. Nigerians know this Nigerian. There's nothing wrong with having a descriptor for your group. But I don't use FBA. I'm a New Orleanian. And in my estimation, when you say you're a New Orleanian, that is connecting you both to the nation in which you were born, and culturally it connects you to West Africa. So I don't never be like, yeah, I'm FBA. I'm like, no, I'm from New Orleans. I
Yeah, I
don't.
don't think I've used the term foundational Black American to describe myself, but I
Yeah,
just kind of think that something is particular about the fact that you're a descendant of a slave in the United
yeah,
States, right? And
yeah.
because even what we're talking about when we're talking about the falling of empire, that's the reason why we feel the stress, as opposed to maybe if you was on the outside, you might be like, it's
That's how
falling
I feel over here.
off. It's time to go down. But because we're here, then it's like,
Yeah,
oh shucks, our livelihoods, our literal lives, right? Because at the same point, there are some people calling for another civil war, So because you don't know which way it's about to go, it's stressful while you're in it. So I just think that it kind of shows the peculiar space that we occupy being descendants of slaves in the
yeah,
United States. Hmm.
yeah. No, absolutely, absolutely. So now you landed in South Africa. You were here for what?
The first
The
time I
first time.
came, I think it was like 10 days or something like that. I spent a few days in South Africa and then we came to Johannesburg.
I
And
mean,
then
Cape Town,
I'm sorry, what did I say? We
South
spent a
Africa.
few
Yeah.
days in Cape Town. I'm sorry. We
Uh-huh.
went a few days in Cape Town and then we came to Johannesburg. And
Hmm.
the second trip, we did a week in Johannesburg and a week in Cape Town.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now, with experiences in both places, let's how do you compare the two cities in your mind? What were your experiences like in Cape Town and then your experiences in Johannesburg?
Okay, so Johannesburg is the city. It's the New York of South Africa. Maybe even the New York of all of Africa, but I still need to go other places to see, right? But I
Hmm.
feel the metropolitan, party club up all night. Like I can feel that energy. It's also really busy. Seems like everybody's going to and fro from their business during work time. I would say that because I was at the University of Wits, I felt like I met more people. So I had the chance to be able to have more exchanges with students and faculty and kind of see how it is that people are thinking and, grooving. I felt like it was like that I got a chance to see how people are on the ground just in their everyday regular way of life and that it's busy.
Yeah.
So I felt like that was my um Johannesburg experience. And in Cape Town, it felt more laid back, because it's not
Hmm.
as busy and it's coastal, so it has that coastal vibe to it. However, it still kind of feels like, well, where is the everyday experience for South African people in Cape Town? Not Afrikaan with the KKK, and but like just everyday Black South Africans, what is their life like in Cape Town? Because the areas that we were at were still geared toward settlers and tourists, and so I felt like there was still like a disconnect with the experience that I had there, where I want to be able to maybe link more with everyday people to see, because
Mm.
I hear more about Cape Flats and how different it is, and I understand that my analysis is on settler colonialism. That's the kind of research I do. So I
Hmm.
understand that colonialism has pushed native South Africans away from this area that is so picturesque and pristine in Cape Town, and you feel it, right? So I feel
Mm,
like I would have wanted more time there to be able to kind of understand more about what is regular life like in Cape Town and not just
mm.
this one that they're attracting me to with these tourist opportunities, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah, definitely. Cape Town is picturesque, and aesthetically pleasing. However, I think like yeah, when I went there the first time in 2019, I just didn't see enough. Let me just be very plain. I didn't have a great analysis. All I said was I don't see enough black people. And I'm in Africa. And this was
Mhm.
my first time in South Africa. Not my first time on the continent, but I was like, man. And then the more I was there, I understood exactly what was kind of going on, asking questions. Not exactly what was going on, but I understood more. When I came to Johannesburg, you don't have to look. The the presence of the people are there from the spectrum because you see the rich Negroes and you see the poor black folk in Johannesburg. You see the spectrum, right? And I just didn't see enough of that in Cape Town. So you talk about your research is on settler colonialism, and I just
Mhm.
maybe can you give me like a impromptu analysis, comparative analysis between maybe New Orleans and what you experienced here in South Africa?
Okay, so that is what I'm wrapping my mind around even still. And I'm thinking I
Okay.
might end up writing something about it, right? However, my book is called Settler Colonialism is the Disaster. And it's analysis of New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina and during COVID-19. So I have a book that is talking about settler colonialism as a
Mm-hmm.
disaster, okay? And so first of all, that's a plug. You should sign up on a mailing list to get the book. I had to send you the link or whatever so you could post it, right?
Please do. Please do.
That's a plug. But then also, let me say a little bit about settler colonialism just so that people can make sure that they're tracking with me. With settler colonialism, there is a colonial relationship like mother country and colony, but it's all in one area, and the settlers have decided they're going to stay. And when the settlers decide that they're going to stay, they have this illusion about being native to the space. So you'll
Mm,
hear Americans, for example, and Americanism, patriotism, all of those things are a false identity trying to appear native to the space when they're not. I think you
mm,
have the same thing in South Africa when they're talking about Afrikaans, right? And the idea that they were born in South Africa, they are South African, when in fact we know that they're occupying population. Now, this might be as inflammatory as your Malikowski statement, but we see the same thing in Israel, people who are
mm,
not originally from that area claiming to be from that area. That's the reason why your Milikowski statement is controversial because it shows that his last name is Polish. He is Polish. He is not Palestinian. Okay. So,
mm,
one is that just the term talking about settler colonialism uproots this kind of mysterious way that they're trying to connect themselves to spaces that they're not from. Okay, so that
mm,
is the continuation. And then we can think about what it means for the United States and New Orleans being in the United States, what it means for the United States to say that they've severed from Britain and yet the settlers are still in place. Their system is still in place. They don't have to call themselves Euro Americans or European Americans. They just can say Americans. And their system still holds up this whole thing. And we would
mm,
have to work through what that means in South Africa because even though you all have gotten rid of apartheid, the ways that land still works the same, the way that
mm,
finances, banking, money may work the same, and the way that they may try to insert themselves in your politics, as y'all saw with the last presidential election, may mean that you're in some kind of neo settler colonial relationship, right? And
mm,
so I think that those things are very illustrative. Now, typical characteristics for settler colonial conditions are that because they're trying to appear native, they are going to eliminate native people.
Hmm.
They are going to incarcerate Native people. They are going to hook up their industries in ways that move through large amounts of resources, yield large amounts of waste, and then they'll discharge it in environmentally racist ways. Okay,
Hmm.
and they will do things like have exploited labor. Now, to me, when I'm in Cape Town, I heard what you said. You don't see many black folk. You do see black folk. You see them in positions of servitude, right? And that is the critique for me for Cape Town, is that you have Euro South Africans, or however we would then call that, right? The Boers, however we would call that, you have them in positions where they're able to get the premier benefits of society. And the native South Africans are there in positions of servitude, the taxi cab drivers, the hotel workers, the okay. And that's not to say everywhere, but that's to say that's where you see them. We don't see an overwhelming Black South African experience lived in front of your face when you're in Cape Town, maybe like you feel in Johannesburg, and that's just based off of the numbers. Now,
Yeah.
both of those cities are still set inside of this, like I said, neo-colonial, settler colonial space, but just off of numbers, you experience it differently. So
Mm.
I'll go ahead. I'll pause there because I feel like I could go a little bit further, but that would be my impromptu way of thinking about it.
No, no, no. So then my mind immediately. So it's a few things that crossed my mind as you were talking. So in New Orleans, we are, or even in Black America, just in general, we were brought to the United States as slaves. What role? The first question is then, are we a part of the settlement? Are we two settlers? Right? Because that's not our native land. For some of us, we may have native ancestry, but overall, that's not our native land. And secondly, as Black Americans leave the United States and come into Africa, come to the continent, um, we have to be careful not to become neo-colonialist and blackface,
Right.
right?
That's the
So
message of Liberia.
that's the message of Liberia, right? That's the lessons we should have learned there. So then, with that being said, we hear a lot of stuff about gentrification in Cape Town because a lot of Europeans are coming in with the euro and the pound, and they're buying up a lot of stuff, and it's forcing uh, what would have been the black middle class areas. They're forcing them out into townships. I just had this conversation with a lawyer Saturday. Um, what ways can we, those of us who are interested in sincere relationships with the continent, sincere relationships and equitable relationships, relationships based on reciprocity,
Mhm.
um, how can we move into this space without then becoming economic colonists or colonizers?
Oh, that's so good. So I'll say to the first thing is that it depends on who you ask if Black people are part of the settlement. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
there are some Native folk who, if they are going to be the person to pass judgment, they would say Black people are a part of the settlement. Didn't you want 40 acres and a mule? Whose 40 acres did you want? Okay.
Mm.
Weren't you Buffalo soldiers, right? Sent out to
Yeah.
the West to help to kill the Indian, right? So there's that aspect of it. However, there's also the aspect that everyone can act like a settler, like participate in settler behaviors. However, the very discrimination that we describe shows that we are not the settlers. The very
Yeah.
fact that I can't get the house that I want, I can't get the job that I want, my kids can't go to the school that they want, they can't have a great education, I can't receive the benefits of the settlement. So, in some ways, I'm still laboring and I still can't get the benefits, which is what slavery was. We
Right.
labor and we don't get the benefits. Okay. So I think that that speaks more toward just the colonial condition of being Black in the United States, is that you are, like I said before, it's a peculiar experience. You are living in the very thing that is toxic against you. And we
Mhm.
get to these places because we were brought here. Right. So it also, our story is so good because at the same point in time it pushes back against when they try to have the narrative that says everybody's an immigrant, right? They'll
Right.
take the side of America, they'll say everybody's an immigrant, we all came here as immigrants, and we get to say, oh no,
No.
you brought
Mm-mm.
us here, right?
Right.
And you're gonna have to deal with our Black presence. Now the way that they're telling us right now that they're dealing with us is as a hostile enemy force. And this goes back to like other work of Robin Kelly, because he says that we are enemy insiders,
You
right?
say R. Kelly? Who you said?
No, no, Robin D.G. Kelly. Okay, our famous Black studies scholar. Okay, Robin D.G. Kelly. Okay, not Robert Kelly, not him. Okay, but he gives us the idea that we're enemy insiders, right? And he said this not just inside of this last wave where white supremacy is like turning up the fire. He said that, I believe, at the beginning of the Black Lives Matter movement. He came up
Uh-huh.
with the idea that we're enemy insiders, we're enemy combatants, and we're treated that way, which is also another reason why we could talk about the National Guard coming to New Orleans, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
treated as enemy combatants in the United States. Okay, so that's
Right.
one. It's like you're kind of part of the settlement. They leverage your desire to want to be able to be comfortable against you. So
Mm.
that's a thing, right? But to then speak about how to not come into Africa and bring with you a colonial mindset, or to have your money work in the same ways as colonists, is a different conversation, because then you would be immigrants, right? Now the thing
Right.
about being an immigrant versus being a settler is adopting the behaviors of the local people. That's what makes a person an immigrant versus a settler, because the settler
Mm.
comes in and says, you're about to do things in this different place the way that I used to do them. You're gonna do them the same way that I used to,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to being an immigrant is, what is the way you do things? I want to live like you. You see,
Yes.
that's the mindset between the immigrant and the settler. So I would think that the way that we have to come at is as immigrants. How is it that you live? I want to live like you. How is
Mm-hmm.
it that you all are making investments? I want to invest in the future you see, not I'm going to hijack what you have for the future I see, right? All of
Right.
those are different ways of relating, so that's what we would have to keep in check. That was the problem when it came to Liberia. Okay, is
Yeah.
the ability to think, well, now I have a new place where I can rule, as opposed to now I have a new way of being in community, right? How can I
Yeah.
be in community? So I
I
think that's the difference.
yeah, I think to paraphrase Fred Hampton, he said without political education, right? Um, how did he
So,
say it?
mhm.
Basically we'll take on the ways of
Negro
the
imperialists. He said
huh?
without political education, then you would wind up with Negro imperialists.
Imperialist. There we go. There we go. So I think that's why there must be a re-education because you know what I've experienced here. There are a lot of I've met many Black Americans, African Americans coming to South Africa, and sometimes the disposition is wrong, right?
Mhm.
They come with the not only the settler colonial colonialist mindset. They come with the white savior mindset. I'm coming to South Africa. I could just see where we can help. And sometimes I just want to say, Negro, if we had all this ability to help, we would be helping ourselves. I'm back at
Back where
home.
you came from,
Right. We
right?
would be helping ourselves. Sometimes we need to humble ourselves and say, you know what? There may be some experiences here that I can now. That is not to diminish um, the knowledge and the skills and the abilities that we have picked up while we were in the United States. There's a benefit there, but the way we approach it, as you so eloquently just put it, we must come with a community in mind. How can I learn what you're currently doing? And then there's this book called the Medici Effect, and it talks about um, where innovation meets, right? Where innovation is actually created, and that's where different disciplines or different perspectives come together. So if you take an artist and a chemist and an engineer and put them in a room and say solve this problem, and they're working together because they're coming from these very different perspectives, then that's what innovation is created, right? So as those of us who are coming, once you learn and you see, okay, I see how this is done. However, I have this perspective, not to say that what you're doing is incorrect, but here's how we can innovate, right? Here's a way that we could merge these two ideas and create something that benefits everybody in a more equitable way or improves efficiency or whatever have you, right? So I think that's the way Black Americans need to approach things, as opposed to coming saying, oh, I see, or the capitalist mindset, you know, I can come over there, I can see I can start a business and make $1 trillion, right? And nothing wrong with starting a business as long as you're employing folk, right? You're employing people. But when you bring that capitalist mind, capitalism is the enemy of Black liberation, in my opinion, right? We are
You
the
can't
original
be
capital.
business first. You can't be capital first. You
No.
can't be capital first. That's what gives you the settler viewpoint. There's
Mm,
this a art a chapter. I'm trying to think. I think it's from Recovering the Sacred by Winona LaDuke. She's an indigenous scholar. And she says that what the settler does is when he sees trees, he sees timber, right?
yeah.
So it's like I don't see the tree for a tree. I see it for how can I make money for this tree, right? And so
Right.
even if business is going to be a thing, just because economics is a portion of what it is that you use to be competitive on a global scale. So
Mm-hmm.
economics is a part of that, but you can't be business first. You can't
Right.
look at every tree and see timber. At some point,
Mm,
you have to see trees. And I think that that comes from having to detox the mindset. We still have to have the ability to check the fact that you're coming from a colonized space, right? And you're going into a space that you don't want to recolonize. So you have to start undoing the way that you think about things. And that's just what it is. People have to check their perspective. I like how you said humble yourself.
mm-hmm.
Love how you said humble yourself. People have to humble themselves to think, what am I bringing with me that could work to the detriment of people who are from here? And then also, there's nothing with sitting in the space of learning. Like, sit in the space of learning before acting. Don't just think you need to come move in with the action. Like, what about
Right.
learning how it is that they do things there before you think
Right.
about how you can contribute?
Right. And that's one of the ways of doing that. Number one, as you talked about building community, that's why I announced October 11th, the community meetup. We're having a meetup. It is a South African American meetup, right? Because we have to foster community. We have to learn from the South Africans, right? Because we're in their land. See, the reality is we are immigrants. We are visitors here,
Right.
right? I never, no matter how much love these people show me, I never forget that I'm a visitor, right? You ever go to somebody's house and they just nice, you know? Oh, you can have whatever you want, blah 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 blah, right? They tell you that stuff, but let you get up and just start going lay in their bed or opening their refrigerator. You see what I'm saying? They be like, wait, hold up, nah, I invited you in. I was being nice. I'm just really saying make yourself at home, but don't get too comfortable, you know, right? So, and that's the way I look at it. It's like they've told me to make myself at home, but I'm not going to get too comfortable and forget that I am still a visitor, right? I'm still
Right.
a guest in South Africa. And, maybe 20, 30 years from now, inshallah, if I'm still alive, or my children who have been here 3 years, when maybe when they're 40, they can have a more vocal, expression, because they would be invested. Right now I'm here, and that if stuff go bad, I'm going to go back, right? I can
Mm.
leave and pack up and say, "Well, I'm going back to the States, deal with Trump and all that foolishness," right? So, yeah, I think and Dr. Cornell West has a term, and I'm gonna go ahead and say it, but he called it denigify, right? Yeah,
That's
we and I've
explain
been.
the definition. Okay, please follow that up with clarity. Okay.
So here's the thing, and I'm gonna give you an example, and I can give you a definition. So there's a group of black people from the United States. I think it was under Ben Amin Israel or whatever his name. I don't forget his name, but they left the U.S. and they moved to Israel. But before they got to Israel, this is in the 70s, right?
Okay.
They were this is like some of the original Hebrew Israelites, and I don't even know if they're connected to the modern day. I mean, to this contemporary group that they have out now. But they left, but before they actually went into the Holy Land to Israel, because that's what they were saying, it was their Holy Land. They stopped in Ghana for a while, for about a year, maybe even 10 years, or something like that, right? Before they actually, and what the idea was, you have to get what has been instilled in you out of you. You got to take a time to deprogram, right? And then reprogram, right?
Mhm.
So to denigify, right? You know, um, when you listen to like Nation of Islam ideology or theology, they talk about the middle passage being where the N word was created, right? Not but the personage of that, right? Is where they stripped you from being an African and then created the slave, created the N word, right? I don't mean the vocal N word, but the person that embodies the N word, right? And then they bring you to America and you treat it like that, you live like that, not for a year, but for generations, right? So there's um, a level of internalized white supremacy, right? And I say that's the academic way of just saying self hate that is bred within the mind of black people, many African Americans. So if you have that type of stuff in you, you have, and then you come to the continent, right? You say, I want to live here. You don't want to bring that cancer with you. So you need to take time to deprogram and then reprogram, denigify, get all of that internalized white supremacy out of you, whether it's the self-hate, whether it's well, whatever it is, you have to get that out of you in order to be able to be productive and in order to be able to form community over here, right?
Mm.
And I'm gonna be real. They got some black folks that have moved to South Africa, don't even interact with South Africans. They just interact with each other, right?
Mhm.
and and that's part of number one. It's the first time we've ever been immigrants in our life, right?
Mhm.
As you mentioned before, we were slaves, we were not immigrants. Number two, you often see that with immigrant groups in the United States. You see it in New Orleans. Mid City went from being poor and black to having Esperanza and IDL, uh, Hispanic grocery stores everywhere. And those Hispanics who moved into Mid City are not from all of the same areas. They're from Guatemala, Mexico, Honduras, but because they have a shared language and similar culture, similar enough, they moved around each other, right? Which where they feel comfort, where they feel a little security, where there's a more understand. Come on now, you know it's got to be hard to come from Honduras and then come around some New Orleans Negroes. Dear God, it's got to be hard, right? Um, so that's what I'm saying. So it's not necessarily a bad thing that some African Americans only hang with other African Americans. However, there has to come a point where you begin to integrate yourself uh, into the society which you have now adopted as a home. So now, finish. I know. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I like that. I for my class, for my intro class, one of the first readings that we read is this article by George Yancey. And in it, he talks about, he uses the term niggerization. Okay, nigger.
Mm,
And it's interesting how you talked about it because, as being academic, it's like, thinking about the middle passage as the process of doing that. But the way that he talks about it in the text is that as a Black person is growing up from childhood into adulthood, there will be points where they are telling you that you are indeed the N word and assigning it to you so that you become that thing.
mm.
And just to say a little bit, he gives like several stories. One is I'm gonna remember the guy's name. He's an actor, and he was Ruby Dee's husband. Uh
Ozzie Davis.
Ossie Davis. Ossie Davis was a little boy, and he said he was playing outside. He was about somewhere between 6 to 8 years old, and the police picked him up in a police car, brought him down to the police station, smeared him with honey, called him the N word, and laughed at him, and then brought him back home and dropped him off. And he was trying to, as an adult, make sense of this moment. And George Yancey argues it is a moment of niggerization because they're pointing at him,
Mm,
calling him the N word, dehumanizing him, and letting him know this is your place in society. He gives an
mm.
example of Malcolm X because Malcolm X has this story where he talks about being a kid in the classroom, and he says what he wants to be when he grew up, which I think was a pilot,
Lawyer.
a
Oh, he said
lawyer.
he wanted to be a lawyer. Yeah.
And the teacher says, "Well, Malcolm, everybody in this room loves you, but don't you want to be an elevator operator, right? Don't you want
Carpenter.
to be this?" And so it was saying this is your space in society. So he
Mm,
argues it was a process of niggerization. Okay.
mm,
It's important too what you're saying because then Malcolm X says he developed self-hate. And he says that's the reason why he conked his hair because he wanted
yeah.
curls out so that he could make himself appear to be less of a Negro. So
Mm,
if we take that perspective over to what you're saying about having to de-niggerize, you got to get all of that stuff out of you before you go into another space trying to interact with other Black people, right? Because
mm,
they kind of showed, and also I think that that gives us also an internal way of thinking about ourselves as you're used to occupying a lesser space in society. And when you
mm,
move over, you can get rid of that. You don't have to occupy the space of that anymore. You can be more of your truer self, which goes into how you feel when you're in Africa. It's like, what? I don't have the lynch man right down the street with the nooses. Like I feel like I can relax on a different level. And
right.
so if we take that to the extremes or even think about it as a process of deniggerizing so that you can get to the point of actually being more of your truer self, getting rid of some of the lingering aspects of self-hate that we probably all carry and just don't know about where it is in our mind, right? And make
Mm,
ourselves more able to interact with people on equitable levels outside of what we've been taught. So I understand the term now, and I
uh-huh.
think it's an interesting term. I like where it's getting us in terms of thinking.
But look, I want to go here, Doc. This is about South. I think my South African audience is going to really appreciate this conversation just on multiple levels. But part of you say the niggerization, right? And you talked about Malcolm, and you know his teacher told him to be a carpenter. Here he
Yeah.
was, the class president, and told him to be a carpenter. But
Mhm.
I also think, and I was thinking about that. Currently, I'm looking at a picture of my son, and I tell this story all the time. Um, Part of the niggerization process may not also be something that we see as demeaning, but it's also about place. And I think Isabella Wilkerson in her book Caste talks about the types of employment and the types of jobs that were acceptable to black people, acceptable for black people in this racialized society. And one of those was entertainment, right? You can always sing and dance and entertain the master. And so a lot of times we hear, oh, you could be a football player. Boy, you kind of tall. You could be a basketball player. See, that's it's not that you can be an engineer, a pilot, a lawyer, a chemist. You can be a ball player. And so to tell you the story, early on in our move here, we were in the mall and there was a brother, and I don't know what kind of sports car it was. It was something that I don't care about the cars, but it was one of the fancy cars. And my son, we pulled up in the garage in the parking lot of the mall, and we see the car, see a young brother sitting in there, and my son goes over. You know, I bring my son over there. I'm using my American privilege, right? You know, hey, how you doing? Hey, I'm from the U.S., man. Blah 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 blah. And you know, let my son look in his car and all that good stuff. This guy was like an engineer or something, right? He wasn't a ball player. He wasn't an actor. He wasn't a singer. He earned his money in this nice car from doing something like engineering, right? And in our context, in the United States, that Lamborghini or whatever it was, being driven by a black person, he's one of three things. He a ball player, he a rapper, or he a dope boy. That's it. You would never expect him to say, I'm an engineer. And that's part of that niggerization process. You need to fit into these categories, right? So I just wanted to illuminate that for a second. But
Mhm.
so
I
now,
think that would to pick up on that would take me so many different places, but I am in agreement about our young people needing to be able to see other alternatives and also to not be caught up just from their size into thinking that that's what they have to do to be able to make some money or to have nice things.
yeah, my when I was in high school, I was big. I've always been sizable as a person. And the coaches would ask me, you don't want to play football? You don't want to play football? And my mama and daddy told me, you will get your lesson. You understand? You will get academics that's all they want you to do is run a ball. I'll tell you a horrible story, man. My One of my best friends, he's passed on now. Rob Robinson played fullback for Bonneville High School.
Mhm.
They wanted him to play. So you know anything about like what they call it, high school football? I forgot the terminology for it, but you have to maintain a certain GPA, a 2.0, in order to play. In order for him to maintain that 2.0, they put him in special education.
Oh my
They put him in
gosh.
special education. And when he graduates, he's getting letters from Notre Dame. He's getting letters from UT. He's getting letters from big time universities. Guess what? When you're in special ed and you don't graduate. You get a certificate of attendance. So
Oh.
without a high school diploma, he cannot go to Notre Dame. And in order to get that high school diploma, he would have had to go back to like the ninth or 10th grade and take all of those classes. So you know he ended up being a trash man, drove a
Mhm.
dump truck. That's how they destroy black people in the United States. Use our bodies up. So let's talk about what is your future for, as it relates to South Africa? Are you returning? Are you?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Every time that I have a break, I'm thinking about, well, how can I work this out, you know?
Yeah.
Um I when I matter of fact, the second I came back, like maybe the next day, I was looking up airline tickets to see how I could get back. Okay, so I think that South Africa is my place. I've been to other places, okay, but I
Mhm.
just really like the vibe there. And I can see myself being able to do more. So I think that is still on the table for me. It's something that I would like to explore, being able to set up more frequent relationships, longer stays, just continue to pursue in my heart with whatever resources I have to be able to do that and see how it pans out for me. So I would say I love coming to South Africa and I see a future for myself there. I'm still trying to see what that would look like.
Well, as you were talking, it made me think that the center is still creating an American Studies program, right? It's a
Mm,
graduate program.
mhm.
And it both deal with history, economics, politics, just American studies. And obviously there has to be a focus on, or a portion that will be about African American studies within that. And it's something that we are like actively working on. The curriculum is partially built. It just takes a long time to actually get a new program started. Very different, I guess, than it is at Xavier or in the US, where, where's the funding? You got the funding? Okay, boom, we can start this
I'm not
program.
going to say that. I'm going to say I walked into our chair, Dr. Charlene Senegal Dakir. I walked into her vision that she wrote for and did everything to be able to craft us a department. So
Yeah,
I'm going to say I received quick benefits, but for her, it
yeah.
was a labor of love. So I'll say
Okay,
that. I
okay.
think that you're putting in the effort right now with the center for the good fight because afterward to have a program like that set up will allow for so much collaboration.
Yeah, and that was my point. With Xavier and Vitz now having an official MOU, right?
Mhm.
There's an official MOU. There's opportunity for, let's send Professor Shepard over there for a semester or for a year. You see what I'm saying? So as we continue to do the work this side, we are hopefully creating opportunities for more Black academicians to be over here. And I'm partial to to New Orleans and making sure I get people over here from our city. But we also have a relationship with North Carolina and Team Morgan State, a few of the HBCUs, and we're excited about those too. But I have a very special place in my heart for the city folk.
For
So
sure.
so
I would
hopefully
say for sure. No.
So hopefully in the next year or so, we could see that program at least getting off the ground, right? Um, it definitely works differently here. Things are a little bit slower. There's much more bureaucracy. With the institution the size of it, number one is 40 some thousand, 44 some thousand students. It's a big institution. So it takes a little bit more time for things. Whereas I don't know how long Dr. Charlene was working on it, but I'm sure once she secured the money, Xavier was like, okay, this is something that can be done. Shout out to
I would
Xavier.
like to say that's the story. How about we stick with that story? That it was just a breeze.
Yeah. So how my people doing? How is
Dr. Charlize Senegal Dakir.
no, well, how's she doing? How is
Oh,
Miranda? How's
Dr.
Dr. Morrison?
Morrison. Oh, everybody's doing well. Everyone is doing well. We had our Katrina 20 conference. So, and
Uh-huh.
they presented at the conference. So, that was wonderful. Dr. Morrison had a panel of people from English and so it was really well. Everybody's been doing good and we're just busy, just keeping the scholarship going. That's all. And we
And
just
yeah,
started our new semester. So
yeah,
hitting.
that's what I was just about to ask. You guys just started the semester. I wanted
Mhm.
to participate. So I didn't, if you notice, I don't think I posted anything on Facebook about Katrina 20. I just think like I don't how old were you when Katrina hit? You were pretty young. Not you were an adult, but
I
oh,
was in my senior year of high school.
okay. All right.
Mhm.
I was 26,
Mhm.
and it was just I don't like reliving that shit. Sometimes I talk about it, or whatever. We talk about Katrina, that type of trauma bonding that created, I think, this love that all New Orleanians have for each other now is because of Hurricane Katrina. It was one big trauma bond. But
Mhm.
uh I don't want to relive that shit. You know what I'm saying? I don't
I
even want to think
tell
about
people I tell people whatever your feelings are around it is valid
it.
because some people still want to um, see where people are. You know, I'm working with Dr. Omar Casimir right now. He has a list of people who he got their names and phone numbers from at the convention center. And he wants to know, where did those people go? How many people passed? What has their story been since, right? And like get an update for understanding more about the demographics of the city. So there are some people who want to engage with it more, and there are some
Yeah.
people who, some people don't want to hear about it. I wound up being a part of a group. It's the New Orleans Commemoration Foundation, the New Orleans Katrina Commemoration Foundation, and also with the
That
Hip
was
Hop Caucus. And
that was Cess
yeah,
45.
with sex. Uh-huh. And one thing that they've been pushing is to try to make sure that we could get a Katrina holiday. And so we got it passed. We got it passed as far as like a resolution, or that the anniversary is going to be called Katrina Day. So it is
Mm,
a thing in the state because they went through the state legislature and through city council. But the issue
mm.
is that it's not a paid holiday, right? So what we
Oh,
would like is for people to be able to get off in the city, to come, to at least have the ability to rest, relax, reflect, or
yeah,
come out and do some community work with us around
yeah, yeah,
what we want to see done, right? So I feel like that's the kind of space where I like to occupy for the Katrina anniversaries or commemoration or whatever we are going to decide to call it. Is like,
yeah,
whatever way you think about that is fine. I'll tell a person, oh, we're going to have a Katrina holiday. And they're like, I don't need a holiday. I just want to work and forget. So I think
yeah.
all perspectives are valid, but it still means that we should have a space where, if you want to come, if you want to get loved on by your community, if you want to think about how we're going to build moving forward, a Katrina Day is a good way to be able to do that.
No, congratulations on that. Just it's a feat just to get it recognized, and then God willing, it will be a paid holiday soon, and that's something I mean, that's phenomenal. I mean, congratulations, really. Um, yeah, Katrina's something else. Uh,
Mhm.
is it? It's like I think back because it's 20 years. I can't believe 20 years passed that quickly. Like the first 20 years of my life looked like it took about 40 years to get there. Jesus, and then and then and then all of a sudden, boom! It's be like 2 decades then passed just like that. But when I look at the city post Katrina and what it is now, 20 years later, in many ways is encouraging, and then it's disheartening. It's encouraging because our culture is still pretty much intact. But when I see the population loss, um, when I see that 20 years post Katrina, the majority of Black Americans, I think, is like 51% of Black households or Black children and people under the age of 18 are living in poverty in the city of New Orleans. So it's like we have not made the type of progress pre-Katrina or post-Katrina. Like I'm looking at the same like conditions, for 46 years. And it's like, dang, we had an opportunity to reset and maybe rebuild something truly phenomenal, um, to where it could have been a more equitable society for the Black people that live there. It's always disheartening to talk about we are the majority in that city and it's our city, but we don't benefit from the economics. We are the poorest. We have the worst health outcomes. If you look at the zip code, I believe it's 70124, which is the Lakeview zip code, and 70118, which is the kind of Holly Grove uptown area. There's like a 7 year, 10 year
Life
life
ex-
expectancy difference.
Mhm.
Yeah, so just being white in New Orleans, you're gonna live longer.
Right.
So that's a problem. So when I look at that stuff, it's like, I don't I get disheartened sometimes thinking about the city. I love everything about our culture, just about everything, but I still get sad when I see our condition. You
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
it's sad.
I agree with everything that you said. And again, I think it's because it's a colonial condition. That's how you can wind up receiving, how many billions of dollars did we get after Hurricane Katrina? And yet the lower ninth ward still looks the way that it looks because the community was disinvested in. So all of
Mm.
that money goes the way that money always goes, which is part of the issue with coloniality is that it dominates your finances, right? And so
Mm.
I think that that's the reason why people should pick up the book. Okay, they should pick up the book
Shout
so
it
that
out one more again.
say it again.
Shout it out one more again. What's the name of
Okay.
it?
It's called Settler Colonialism is the Disaster, and it's gonna be by the University of Illinois Press. I'll
Mm.
send you a link where people can just sign up on a mailing list early, but
Uh-huh.
I think they're supposed to be setting up a website to process prepayments. So I'll get the
Uh-oh.
information to you. Mm-hmm.
Like when you
Yep.
get that big money, remember me now.
Look, I'm not gonna have to remember you. You gonna see me. I'm gonna be right next door. Like, hey.
Uh,
When the big check
yeah.
comes,
When the
okay.
big check come, Lord have mercy. I've been waiting on that big check for a long time.
Well, now you
Mm.
know they got a unsigned check that they got over here that they owe. Okay, the
Look,
Martin Luther
people,
King check. Okay.
look, Martin Luther King, this is what people don't seem to realize is that the I Have a Dream speech, that is a sanitized, problematic speech in so many ways because that's the only part they remember. That was a freestyle. The part of the speech that is most important is when Dr. King started and he said, "We come to today to collect a check that has been marked insufficient funds."
Come on now. Now
You
look, we could go
understand?
to reparations now. Come
You
on.
understand?
The real
Cut the
big
check,
check.
baby.
The real big check. Uh-huh. But I think that's the thing. They know if they cut that check, we are gone.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
know that we are a captive population right now. Okay. They know if they really cut the check, we're gone. And I think that as much as they think they want to lose us, they know they don't want to lose us. It's the same war that they're doing on the immigrants right now. As much as
yeah,
you say you don't want illegal immigrants, you know you need illegal immigrants. So they're about to do this pageantry force on some people to engage in this war, but you know you still need them. The
oh
society
yeah,
works the same.
yeah. I mean, as much as they say they want to get rid of black folk and act like they do, if if 2 million black people left the United States, it would destabilize the country.
Mm,
And just 2 million out of the 40 that we got over there, it would
wow.
destabilize the country. So, and that's not something I'm making up. I asked Chat GPT. I was like, what numbers, what
Not you
percentage?
doing Trump administration research, okay? Because that's all
I
they doing
I just
too.
look. I ain't good at math, so I knew it was a number out there, right? So I was like, because people over here start saying stuff like, we better kind of be quiet about it because soon they're gonna stop letting us leave. They're gonna try to take our passports. They're gonna try to do this. And I was like, man, the numbers ain't big enough right now. We're talking about a few thousand here, a few thousand there. So I said, well, chat, what number, you know what I'm saying, would really have an impact in the United States that would, and chat based on whatever it came up with said about 2 million, if 2 million black people left the United States, it would destabilize the United States. So
Mm.
they claim
Hmm.
they don't want us. You want to try to get rid of 40 million? I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think that they're gonna try to do that. We support so much of just the country in general in a way that is not credited to us, right? They don't
Mm-hmm.
like to think about the importance of even our dollar, not even just us as workers, but
Yeah,
how much we spend because we are almost like a little nation within a nation. We just don't see ourselves that way. So they don't want to
yeah.
lose little nation. You know, it's like when Pharaoh told the children of Israel they could go, and then he was like, you know what, y'all can't go. He told them they could go, and it was like, nah, y'all can't go, right? So I kind of think it'll be something like that, something along those lines, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
Definitely. Well, Doc, we'd probably talk about a good hour and a half. You know, I don't know how long this video gonna be. They're gonna be like, wait a minute, this brother was but
He was having a good time, is what it was. I hope people have a good time watching. So
I do too. I think it'll be interesting for a lot of people, you know. But I really do appreciate you coming
sure.
to South Africa. Oh, we didn't even talk about the conference that you came for this year. You came
Oh,
for the
mm-hmm.
and you presented on what? Tell me what you presented on again.
The Know Your
The
Clap.
Noya clap.
I presented on the Know Your Clap, and it was wonderful. It was a great presentation. Also, I did the panel about was it I was talking about African American and US relationships on
Uh-huh.
for that. And I just want to say from sitting on that conference that the scholars that we met were very rigorous. It was a
Mm-hmm.
rigorous bunch of people, and I learned a lot of good information. Also, isn't it posted on YouTube or um,
Mm-hmm. It
it's
is.
up so people would be able to click on that and find out a little bit more about the information that was shared, but I
Yeah.
really appreciated it. And yeah, I think that that is one of those examples of building community.
So speaking of that, and we're gonna wrap this up, but we're planning for next year's conference. You know, this year there were some technical difficulties with the water on campus, and we had to go from being in person to virtual. But and also because you and myself and Dr. Morrison and um, Miranda were trying to do this hip hop thing, right? So we kind of incorporated the hip hop or the exam and rap the into the conference. But next year, since you know y'all are literally studying the diaspora, and that is a big portion of the conference, we can actually do something. Not that this, we could do something up around the diaspora. You see what I'm
Hmm.
saying?
Hmm.
More than without having to limit ourselves to doing like hip hop or whatever have you. So
Hmm.
so maybe you'll be back then for that conference or whatever have you. That'll be I think that was in April. So just a few months from now.
Hmm. Look, you
Yeah.
know where to find me, and you should already know I want to say yes. So just let me know.
All right, Doc. Well, I ain't gonna hold you. My wife is sending me questions on WhatsApp, so let me pay attention. Yeah, you
Mhm.
know, have please enjoy yourself out there. Be safe out there in Trump's America, and yeah, and give
I'll
everybody my
try.
love.
I will. And thank you for having me. And this was a great conversation. I really appreciate it.
All right, you have a good one.
You too.